Okay, so what we're going to talk about tonight is actually in that Learning PHP book, okay, Chapter 9, LPMJ, which is the Learning PHP. But we're not doing anything PHP related. It's just that that book has a good chapter on database design, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay, so you're welcome to follow along in the book. I happen to have it up just so I remember what to talk about. All right, so last time we did some simple databases. That's a little too small. I'll zoom it in. All right, so last time we just did a couple of simple database entities, right? And we did this sort of stuff to it, remember? Like student and professor. Okay. That's what we did last time. If you don't like my handwriting, I'm sorry. At least this way you can take it home and sit there, while you're watching a football game or something and try to figure out what I wrote, right? Otherwise, you've got to write down what's on the board in real time. Okay, so that was a simple database design. Now let's assume we want to do something more complex like we're doing for our project. So your project, you have a grocery store, which it goes up there, yeah, which presumably has different departments, different items. Okay, so we have a lot more things to track. For the purpose of this, so you can go back to the book and reference this drawing to what's in the book. I'm going to go through and use an example in the book about books. Okay, so think of it as kind of the Amazon example, if you will. Oops. If you don't understand something, by the way, you ought to be able to turn it on. You ought to be able to click on it. Where's it at? There's supposed to be like a little bubble for questions. Where is it at? I don't think that's it. No, that's not it. Is that this thing? No, that's not it. There's normally a comment thing. I don't know. They've changed this thing since the last time I used it. Does anybody see like a little chat bubble on your side? No? Okay. If you have a chat bubble, what you ought to be able to do is click on something you don't understand, click on it, and type what I don't understand this, and I should be able to see a comment on the board. Okay. It used to be very apparent, but I don't see it anymore. Now it didn't require. Oh, you know what it is? I know what it is. I used to have a paid account. It allowed you guys to do that. I don't have a paid account anymore. It's too expensive. It's really expensive. Okay, so not for the account I had, and I can't downgrade my account beyond free. So I had a consultant account, and it was a lot more money. Right. So anyways, it doesn't matter. Okay, if you have a question, I'll go over it. Just let me know. Okay. All right. So we've got these tables here, or these entities. And this is a simple example. So if we go into the book, and I'm just going to, for the sake of this class, we saw that already. I'm just going to show, I showed it to you kind of from before. I'm going to delete it real quick. Okay. There. Okay. Fresh board. So let's imagine we have Amazon, and we want to start tracking our sales and our books and our customers and stuff. So the questions we start asking are, well, how many authors are in the database? How many books are in our database? How many customers might be in the database? Which author wrote a certain book? Which books are written by a certain author? What's the most expensive book? What's the least expensive book? What's the best-selling book? Which books didn't sell this year? What books did a certain customer buy? And what books might have been purchased along with other books? All things that Amazon does, by the way, right? So let's think about our data that we have here. Okay. Anybody tell me what type of information we might be tracking, and I'll kind of keep track on the board here. Okay, authors. Okay, authors, ISBN, book title, genre, yep. Yeah, publication date. Hold on, I gotta catch up. Sorry. Page length, I heard. Did I get that already? Yep. Yep. What else? Yeah. What would that be? Format. Yes, format. Huh? What's that? Issue? Oh yeah, like a book series. Okay. Series. Yeah, volume. Publisher. Yes. Language. Yeah, good one. What's that? Yeah, I've got format now. Should be on the board now. Yeah. Anything else? Like, is it a new release or not? Um, wait. I got page. Now with respect to, so I think we've got a lot about the book and the authors, but what about our customers? What will we track for our customers? Page. Oops. Hold on. So, customer age. Maybe customer demographics besides age. Maybe I'll make that more general. So demographics. What? Wait. If you zoom in, you might be able to read it better. I'm really trying to write it as neatly as I can, but I grew up in the age of computers just starting out, and I was told never to handwrite anything again in like kindergarten. Does anybody read my writing pretty well and would be willing to translate after class for anybody who can't read it? Okay. Extra credit for anybody who develops AI that can do that, all right? All right, customer age or demographics, customers shipping information. But we're also going to have like shipping address. Yep, customer email, customer phone number. Oh yeah, customer email, phone, quantity purchased. Yeah, it could be their IP address. We're tracking that, customer IP. Customer credit card information. What was that? Oh, who said that? Social engineering? Okay. Social analytics. We're starting to have quite a list here. Okay. Another thing that we're going to be tracking is not only the quantity purchased, but we're going to be having inventory data, right? So we're going to have inventory, okay? And that's going to be a variety of things related to inventory. We're going to have things like a supplier, yeah. So like our cost, our selling price, stock on hand, stock ordered. Is it easier to read on your phone or your computer, by the way, than it is on the board? Okay. I was hoping so. Usually it is. All right. Anything else that we can think of that we would need to track? What's that? Exactly, yeah. And actually, one more I'll add before that, loyalty. We might have loyalty information for a customer. Okay. So employees. So maybe the so employee data. That is going to be maybe the salesperson. Locate. If let's just assume we also have physical location. We're not just Amazon. We have a physical location. Oops, darn, damn thing here. Um, Store location. Okay. I think we're getting a good list, but think about it. What we're doing here is exactly what you all need to do for your project. Okay? You need to think about the types of data that you need to accomplish for your organization. Okay, that you need to track, because that's going to drive your design. All right. Anything else that we can think of here? Okay, I think we have a good start. All right, so let me just. It's a pretty long list. So if I zoom out, and I zoom a little bit, we have a pretty good start of a list here. All right. So, does anybody want to do that? All right. Anybody who wants to do that, I will make you an offer you can refuse. Anybody who wants to do that will get an F in the class right now, and you can leave. Okay. Oh, did you say you take that offer? You got to phone a friend. All right. Okay, so we've got quite the list here for our of the data that we want to track. Okay. Now let's just for a moment humor the book. Okay. And I really want to humor the book, but I can't get my mouse to come back. There we go. Let's just assume for right now, just for now, we have three basic categories of data. You know, we'd actually have four if we consider the employees and more than that. But let's just assume that for the first iteration of this, we're going to have three tables: author, books, and customers. Now we're going to actually improve upon that later in this exercise. Okay. So let's start off with we have authors. I wonder if it would help if I made the line thicker. Would it help if the line were thicker? Let me do a test here. Is that better? That's worse? Okay. What about this? Is it better if I do all caps? We'll test this. It's slower for me to write in all caps though. Yeah. I mean, would it be better if I did this? Oh my God, I can't write in cursive anymore. Okay. That's probably not any good. Yeah. You know why they made me get a computer when I was in school. Okay. All right. So we'll go back to where it was originally, I guess. Okay. All right. Let me do one other thing here and see if this improves it at all. I don't know if it will. Let me just try one other thing. Okay. Will not work with letters. If I draw a square, though, it will automatically turn it into a box, I believe. What? Yeah, it doesn't have that feature, unfortunately. All right. And I guess I'll ask one other question. Is black fine, or do you want a different color? Because I've got a whole palette of colors I can use, but I think the black's easiest to read. Okay. If I'm doing like images, though, I'll probably try to do some other colors to make it a little easier to differentiate like lines and stuff. Okay. But for the letters, I'll stick with black. Right. All right. So let's stick with let's start with I'm gonna try to have it smart draw so that it retains the, in theory it should automatically convert that in. No, it's not as useful as I thought it would be. All right, so authors. Okay, and we've got this entity here. Okay, and then we've got books, and then we've got customers. Before I go on, actually, I don't want to forget, when we do the recorded class, It's going to be on YouTube. Okay? I'm not going to use Zoom. It'll be on YouTube, and I don't know exactly when I'll have it up. I'm hoping to have it up by class time. Okay? If not, I'll have it up for the weekend after that. It just depends on how busy I am. But as aside from that, I get asked a lot of career questions, and I just don't have the bandwidth to meet with people individually to talk about careers. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in class. Okay. And I will do it when we're here in person. But what I need all of you to think about ahead of time is what questions you have for me. Okay. So uh, it does no good if nobody has any questions and then comes to me individually later on with questions. I just don't have the bandwidth for that. Okay. So I want to be able to help you, give you suggestions, companies to talk to, opportunities, answer anything you want me to answer. Okay? I don't even care if it's related to careers, but that would seem to be the most logical. But you have to come with questions, okay, if we do that. So I will set aside a time, probably maybe next week. What's that? No, that won't be the whole class. It'll just be part of it. I mean, unless we end up with a ton of questions. Yeah, if you're just trying to avoid going through the material, I don't know how that benefits you, but yeah.
I'll genuinely have a lot of questions.
Okay, so I'm going to target this week is what, the 7th? This week is the 7th. Yeah, so next week we have both days of class. Okay, so let's try to do it sometime next week, either Monday or Wednesday. Think about questions you might have, compile them, and then be ready to ask them, okay? I think that's going to be much more effective, okay? As much as I'd like to help everybody individually, there's so many of you and only one of me. It's a little difficult, okay? All right. So we have authors, we have books, and we have customers. And unfortunately, I can't show them all on the screen here because I drew them so big. I can shrink it a little bit. So those are the three entities that we have. Now, yeah, you can shrink it on your side. Just this window here that I'm showing is not my actual iPad. That's just a browser like all of you see. It's not logged in. It should be the same of what you see on your side. Okay. If it were mine, it would keep telling me that they want me to sign up for a professional account. It's really annoying. Okay. All right. So we end up with the authors table. Okay. Everything related to an author will be in that table. Then we'll have a books table for everything related to the books. Okay. Sometimes a book will have a different edition. Sometimes they might have different publishers for different editions. Okay. Authors need to be in a separate table though, okay, from the books. Then we have the customers. Customers can purchase any book that they want from any author that they want. So we want to make sure that they're in their own table. Okay. Now, we have keys. So thinking about keys for each of these tables, books are nice. Okay. For whatever reason, someone got this grand idea back in, I think, the 70s. Gosh, every book should have a unique identifier called an ISBN. And as we've grown with content, the ISBNs have been lengthened to, I think, 13 characters instead of 9 or whatever it was originally, or 10. Okay, so every unique book has an ISBN number, so we can use that as a unique identifier for the books table. So we can go ahead and say that every book has an ISBN. Okay, and that's the unique identifier, the primary key. Okay? So this is our primary key. Now, for authors, we're not so lucky. Okay. So what do you think we would use for the authors table to make it unique? Yeah, an author ID. And we can actually, well, this book says you could auto-generate it, and let's just assume we could auto-generate it because we don't have a programmer on staff. We just want a simple database, okay? But in the real world, we would probably build this into an application, and a developer would build it for us, that logic. But for the sake of this class, just assume we don't have anybody who can go create that code for us. So we're going to use the auto increment. So we're going to go ahead and create an author ID column. And that's going to be the primary key for the authors table, okay? And it's also going to be an auto increment. So now we've got a unique ID for that table. For the customers, same sort of thing. We need a customer ID, okay? So we're going to create a customer ID that is also auto-incremented. And that is a primary key. All right, so now we've got 3 tables, 3 keys, and everything's good, right? Not necessarily, because now we need to go through and do normalization. We initially think that 3 tables is going to be sufficient for this data. But the reality is, as we go through, we need to actually go through and normalize the data. So the first thing we do is let me show this example on my screen here. Okay. So this is an example of what it would look like if we just did a really poor job and put everything in the same table, right? Okay. Now, if we want to normalize that, okay, we want to fulfill these requirements. Number one, we don't want repeating columns with the same kind of data. Okay. So we want to make sure that in the different tables that we create, we don't have the same column that repeats the same data, and that would be bad. The second thing is we need to have a single value. Right here is a problem, our address. Okay? The address itself should actually be broken up into an address, a city, a state, and a zip. And actually, I'm going to go into this as we go through this process. We're actually going to split those out, and we're going to move those into their own different types of tables, because we don't want to have a situation where we end up with someone enters a zip code and then they manually enters a city and it's not the right zip code, because zip codes can change. So we'd rather track the zip code separately and associate with the city in a separate table, okay? But we're going to get to that in a second. Other things, let's see, the date. We want to make sure that we store that consistently. So we might have an order table with the dates eventually, okay, of the date of the order, because we don't want it in the same, the customer can buy multiple things, so they might have multiple orders, okay? So we want to probably track that in a separate table. The third thing is you need to have a primary key to uniquely identify each role. Okay? So we have author 1 and author 2 columns up here. This is repeating data in this table. It's very inefficient. Okay. So when we have those repetitive tables or columns in the table, we're violating that first rule right there. There should be no repeating columns containing the same data. We have 2 authors, and they each have data associated with them. Okay. So what we can do is let's move on to the second one here. Let's just go through all these and then I'll explain. So the second one is there's 3 authors for the last book here. Okay. So we've got an author here, and then we put 2 authors in this one here. That would be bad. Okay. So what we've done is we've broken rule 2, which is all columns should contain a single value. That would be like me putting favorite color, blue and red, in the same column. Okay. Maybe I do have 2 favorite colors. Well, they're not blue and red, but I wouldn't want to put those in I want to have a single value in that column. Okay. So we violated rule 2 there. So we really need to transfer author details to a separate table. Now, rule 3 is satisfied because we have an ISBN primary key, okay? So we could uniquely identify the book, at least, with that unique identifier, okay? Now what we've done is we've taken the author columns out of this table, okay? And we just have the title, ISBN, price, customer name, customer address, and purchase date. Now, here's another issue here. We've got duplicated data, okay? We have a customer who bought multiple books, same customer name, same address, okay? Actually even the same date here. Okay? So we still have duplicated data. Okay? So now what we want to do is we want to strip this down even further. So we want to have an authors table, which has the ISBN of the book that they're the author of, and the author name. And if you look here, you see that this ISBN has an author named David and an author named Adam, okay? So we've broken it down where the ISBN is unique, and then we can have that unique identifier here with multiple authors, okay? But ISBN here is not it's the primary key for the books table. It's not the primary key for the authors table. Okay, so we would actually have to add a column here for an author ID. This ISBN field here is just for us to speed up searches when we're trying to search for data. Okay, we're using a foreign key for that to reference the books table. Okay, it's not unique within this particular table. We can see there's two with the same for two different authors. Okay, so we're going to use it as a foreign key to the book table, where those will be the unique value for each book, because each book has a unique identifier called an ISBN. But in this authors table, what we're going to have to do is add another column for a primary key. And that's where we add that author ID and we generate it. Okay. So if we go down, let's go to the second normal form. So the first normal form when you do normalization is eliminating duplicate data. Okay. When we go to the second form, we're worrying about redundancy across multiple rows. So we first have to get this done, the first normal form that we do up here at the beginning. We do that first. Not until we're done with that do we move to the next step. Okay, we got to make sure that we don't have any duplicate data in there. Now that we have no duplicate data, we can move on. So we have to identify columns where the data repeats in different places and move them to their own tables. So if we look at table 9.2, go back up here. This person bought 2 books. Their data is duplicated. Okay. So what we do is we remove the customer information from the table that we've created called titles. This is where we put the book titles. We don't put a lot of other details in here. We just put the book, the basic book title and their price, okay, and the ISBN. This title table has the ISBN, which is unique, the title, which may not be unique, by the way, because titles could have the same thing. A couple of you in the MIS411 class, the library contacted me and said they couldn't find, or they couldn't get the book today. Like they couldn't get it on reserve. And it's probably because the title is very similar to a lot of other books. I just sent them my book, by the way, so we actually have it for that class. Enough for this business of trying to get the book. Okay, but there's the price in here. That could be the same. So we have this unique identifier in the titles table for the book title. Okay. Now, this is efficient and it's self-contained because it satisfies both first order and second order. Okay. We've done first duplication, and then the second is we broke it up so that we really only have very unique data here. Okay. Now, we could also include a bunch of other details that are closely related. Okay. So we could put things like the publication date, the pages, the reprints, etc. Okay, if they're closely related to this data that's already in this table. Okay. But we don't want to put any column that could have multiple values for a single book. Okay, because then we'd have to have the book on multiple rows, which would violate the second order. Okay, so the first order is worrying about do we have duplication of the column information, and the second one is duplication of the actual data in the rows. Okay, now if we put the author column in this title table, we would violate that. Okay, because there could be multiple rows here written by the same author. Does that make sense? So what we want to do instead, and actually I'm going to take advantage of not using this for a moment to let it charge because it's really slow at charging now. It's getting really old. All right. So now we've got a table for titles. Okay. And now we look at the customer information. Okay. This is the customer information. We can still see that we could do more normalization because this person's details are duplicated. Okay. So from a second order perspective, we've got duplicated data in these 2 rows. But I argue, along with this author, that we didn't comply with the first normal form either because all of this is in one field. This should actually be in separate columns. Okay. We should have the zip in a column, the address in a column, the city in a column, and the state in a column. Okay. Because otherwise, I could write Emily Drive with, you know, E, capital M, space I. I could do it so many different ways, and I would be able to find that data. Okay. So we want to break it into separate columns. But we only want to have to enter details once. We can't use the ISBN as a unique identifier because multiple people bought the same book. So we actually have to create a new customer ID field, which is a primary key for this, okay? So we would not want to use this ISBN, we would want to use a customer ID field. So this table here is what it should look like after we've normalized it, okay? We've done the first and second normal forms. We now have a unique customer ID number, 1234, each customer's name, their address, their city, their state, and their zip, okay? We remove the purchase information, okay? Because if we left it there, then we might have multiple values for, say, Darren who bought multiple books, okay? So what we do is we then say, we're gonna create a new table called purchases, okay? So we're building upon each time and building additional tables. I will show you what they all look like at the end here, okay? So now we've broken it out and we've put the purchase data in here. So customer number 1 bought this book. Customer number 2 bought this book and this book. Customer number 3 bought this book. Customer 4 bought this book, okay? What we're doing is we're reusing the customer number, which is a primary key here. We're reusing it as a foreign key here, okay? Now, a customer can buy multiple books. So as we see there, a customer bought multiple books. That's not a unique identifier. We can't use it as the primary key, okay? So we want to be able to keep track of unique identifier for the customer. So what we would have to do is come up with a purchase ID or a transaction ID, which would be a unique identifier for that purchase, for that table. So we'd actually have another column here in the front here that would be purchase ID or purchase customer, or what do you call it, order number or whatever it is, purchase ID, purchase number, order number, whatever we want to call it, okay? But it's a unique identifier. We have to go through and do this repetitively, okay, on all of the different tables that we have. So as you can imagine with the grocery store example, this is much more than, if you were thinking that, gosh, this project seems so simple to design, I'm just going to go look online and find an example. It's not that simple, okay? This is why you have a lot of time to work on that portion of it and you have a group. I didn't want you to do this part individually, okay? It's too much work for one person to work on. So you're going to want to take the time on Wednesday when we do this in class, and then take the time when we don't have class. You're welcome to come in here and use this room. It's for us, our class. Even if we don't have class, you're welcome to use the computers in here. You're welcome to come in here and meet, okay? All right. So now we can use customer number and ISBN as foreign keys to search, and we might have multiple foreign keys in this table, and that's okay. We can have multiple foreign keys, okay? But we would still have a unique order number, purchase number, okay, for tracking the purchases, okay? Now, we now have 4 tables total. We have authors, titles, customers, and purchases. And all of these tables can be linked to each other using the foreign keys customer number or ISBN, okay? So we can use those as foreign keys to link all those tables together. So if I want to see what books Darren purchased, I can look them up in table 9.6. If I go back up here, 9.6, okay? Right here. He purchased, he's customer number 2. So now I can go look in the purchases table and see that he purchased ISBN ending in 03 and 15. So I can go back up here and find the names of those books. So he purchased Dynamic HTML, and I have forgotten the other one already, 015. Okay, this one here, PHP Cookbook. Okay, I've gone back and determined that's what he purchased. Okay. It's a lot of trouble for us. I had to keep scrolling back up, right? But with SQL, we can go and do a query to look up this information pretty easily, okay? Now, let's see here. Now, okay, so now we've got the first and second normal. It's pretty good shape, but if we want to be really strict, we want to maybe do some additional breaking up of these. Okay. So what we could do is we could say that, well, really the state, city, and zip keys are not directly related to a customer because other people have the same city, state, and zip code. Okay. But they're related to one another, so we could probably move them elsewhere. So we know that the address relies on the city, and the city relies on the state, okay? And the zip code's assigned to a particular city or state. Okay? So what we can do is we now have this. We have a customers table with a customer number, their names, their address, and their zip code. Then we have a separate zip codes table that maps a zip to a city ID. And then a city ID in a city's table maps to a city and a state ID. Okay? And then the state ID maps to a state name and an abbreviation. Okay? And now it doesn't matter. We don't enter in, when we go and type in the address, we usually select from a drop down like California or CA. Okay? But either way we type it, if we were to manually enter it, it doesn't matter because we're pulling it actually from this database and it already has been created. Okay? So it's already created in the states table. Same with the cities. So we this way, when we do it this way, we avoid people mistyping city names, state names. Okay? Or mismapping a zip code to the wrong city, which I've actually been guilty of for an address, like UCR's address, for example. I don't know the zip code and I always screw it up. So if I'm filling some form out, I always put the wrong zip code. I'm never going to get mail. It's just, for forms or whatever online, but I don't know the actual like the actual city, state zip code for a particular address. Okay. This is where you can solve for that problem. Okay. So if the customer knows their zip code, it will put in the right city and state. Okay. So now you end up having a number of things. You have the customers table, you have the zip code table, the cities table, the states table. Then you also have the authors table and the titles table. Okay.
I really wish they would have shown that better in the book because it makes more sense when it's in web visual.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pain in the butt trying to go through the book and they're flipping the pages back and forth and what you were doing here scrolling up and down.
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm going to show you now the final version, since I don't know why they did not put it in the book here. I don't think they did. Yeah, I didn't see it. Oh, maybe this is it down here. No, this isn't it. Okay, so now let's go back through and do all these, and I will visually put them all together. Okay, I'm not going to put the data though. Okay. All right, so we have the customers table. So let's just go ahead and start a new spot here, and for your purposes, you want to see this window. All right. So what we're going to have, I need that other window back because I can't see the screen of the book thing. So let's move this over here. Okay, so what we're going to have first is the customers table. Okay, so we have customers. And in our customers table, it's going to look like this. We're going to have the customer number. We're going to have the name, address, and then we're going to have the zip code. Okay. And then we're going to have a table for zip code. And this one is going to be the zip and the city ID. It's going to look like this. Why is it not showing up on my... You guys see it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. All right. Now we also have the city table, okay, or cities table. So we have cities, And our cities table looks like this. It has a city ID. It has a name. And it has a state ID. Okay. We also have a states table. So our states table looks like this. We have a state ID. We have a name. And we have an abbreviation. Okay. All right, so that's the states table. Oops, oh gosh, darn it. That is not what I wanted it to do. There we go. Okay, so now we go back. We've got the customers, we have the zip code, we have the cities, and we have the states. We need to go back to the titles table. Okay, so we have a titles table. And in our titles table, we have ISBN, title, and the price. Okay. We also have an authors table. And in our authors table, we have right here. So we have the ISBN, the author ID, author name, and the ISBN. All right, and then there is one more. Got the titles, got the authors, purchase, I believe is what it is. Yeah, so then we've got the purchases. And in our purchases table, we have the purchase ID, the customer number, or what do we call it? Was it customer ID or customer number? And then we have the ISBN, and we have the date. All right, so now all right, so now this is what we have ending up. So I'm going to go ahead and just for the sake of make it easier, I don't want you to get confused, so I'm going to cross these three out that we started with, okay? What? It doesn't matter if you draw them. I don't want you to get confused in the board here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to label this one as normalized at the top. Okay. All right. So now we have a customers table, a zip code table, a cities table, a states table, a titles table, an authors table, and a purchases table. Okay. We started off with 3 and we've normalized it to 7 different tables. Okay. So for this use case, this would probably be fine because now what we can do is we can add additional data into these tables. We're not limited to what we've already put here. So let's say for a state, we could put more information in there about, say demographic data, this state bird, or whatever we want to have in there that's related to the state. We can have other data about the state as long as it's directly related to the state. Okay. Same with this city. We could have, other demographics in there. We could have demographic information for the customer, like preferences and things like that. We could track in there as well. Yes. Let's see here. I gotta look at the table in a form with data for me to look at that. Well, the author ID is unique. And then you have the Yes, I've seen the author table here. Oh, because yeah, we can have multiple ISBNs for the same author in there, but we've got a unique author ID. Oh, I see what you're saying. So yeah, we would probably need to then further break that table up somehow. Yeah, yeah. Because the titles are broken up by ISBN, and those are all unique. But an author could have multiple ISBNs associated with it. Yeah, we'd have to evaluate how we better break that one up. Yeah. So the purpose is, well, the only thing is the ISBN is a foreign key that we can use to reference another table. If we did that, then we wouldn't have a way to relate it to another table. So it'd kind of be its own little table there. We'd have no way to relate it to another table without a foreign key. To the titles? Um, Actually, yeah, that's how we do it. Okay, we have the answer. Michelle came up with the answer here. Okay, so we would actually then do author ID as a foreign key in the titles table. Okay, and then we'd get rid of the ISBN here. Would be a way to do it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now that we've normalized it, scroll down here. Okay, I think that's where we're. Okay. All right. Now, another reason why we did the separate zip code, city, states, here's a good example. So I live in a zip code that is currently Marietta post office, but it's actually not technically the city of Marietta, and it will never be the city of Marietta. It's technically in Temecula, but the post office at the time didn't have capacity for my neighborhood when they built it. So the way that the lines are all drawn, it will eventually, it's literally, if you walk across my street, it's Temecula. Okay. And then you walk back across, you're technically in the zip code for Marietta, but it's nowhere near Marietta. At some point, that zip code might change if city of Temecula annexes my neighborhood. So now my zip code changes and my city changes, or yeah, my zip code and my city changes. Or they could change my zip code to be a different city, okay? Or they add a new zip code. So by breaking that into separate tables, we avoid having to go through and change the city and the zip code and millions of records for our customers, okay, by putting it in its own separate table. Okay. All right. So now here's another challenge, and this you guys have to understand these books where some of them were written a long time ago and things have changed. So I don't recall when this particular book was published, but MySQL used to not scale well. Okay, okay, ready to start laughing. We had to use sharding, okay? And now MySQL has like native ways to handle that sort of thing and can scale better than it used to, okay? You guys don't laugh as much as the previous class, you know, they laughed about that for weeks on end. It was so funny to them. They even named their team that way. All right, so we might end up in a situation where we need to scale a database, and so having this many tables and doing lookups and stuff might cause some performance issues. Not as big of an issue anymore. So the book says this could cause performance issues, but generally speaking, these days it's not as big of a deal. Yes. For zip code, the zip code is actually primary key because each zip code is unique. Yeah. And actually, to make it easier, because we may forget that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to star the primary keys. So I'm going to put a little key here. The primary key is a star. Okay. Well, I can't draw a star very well. Now we go into the relationships, which we talked about last time. So I'm going to move the board and move the board up here.